A new report this morning shows inflation eased in April, and it might be the last good report on prices we see before the effects of Donald Trump's trade war really start to take effect. One economist described today's report to the New York Times as a, quote, time capsule. Quote, you're seeing this wonderful picture of what was. That tells you nothing about what's going to be. We're seeing signs of what might be already. Last month, the U.S. economy already saw its slowest rate of economic growth in 4 years. Joining us now, NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans and executive director of the Port of Los Angeles, right here in New York, Gene Soroka. Gene, how can the port do without you? What are you doing here?
Oh, believe me, time zone begotten. We're running both coasts right now.
All right, so I'm going to start with you, Christine. Okay. Give me the lay of the land on this inflation report and what's to come.
I mean, the calm before the trade war storm. I mean, this was a good-looking number. This is exactly what the Fed had been engineering toward, all those rate hikes to try to slow inflation. So we know that at the beginning of April, we had an economy that was showing resiliency in terms of the job market, in terms of consumer spending, and in terms of inflation. And then Liberation Day, that famous day where the president was in the Rose Garden and said he was going to put huge tariffs on friend and foe around the world. That was April 2nd. So all of the lurches of trade policy probably not caught in this particular number.
So just over a month where we were in a situation where it seemed like trade with China was, if not stop entirely, was going to slow significantly. But it was just over a month. So is everything okay now? Is it all going to be fine tomorrow? Will it revert back to normal?
No, Katie, I think there's a long way from here to there. One, for the month of May, we'll be down about 20% with the number of vessel calls that come into Los Angeles and maybe 25% down on the cargo volume side. It'll take the shipping lines probably 2 weeks to reposition their vessels to major ports in China from Qingdao down to Yantian, and then another 2 weeks to steam across to Los Angeles. Then we must distribute throughout the country. So there's a little bit of a lag here, and there's nothing to say that at an average 30% tariff is going to stimulate a lot of buying.
Well, tell me what might be affected. What is definitely going to be coming in regardless of the tariff, and what might not come in or what might come in at much smaller numbers?
Generally speaking, less inventory will be throughout the United States. Fewer choices on shelves and online buying platforms.
Like what sort of choices?
You may be able to find that blue shirt, but it might not be in your size or style that you exactly want. You have a bunch of purple ones over here. That spring dress that my sister wanted to buy for $50, you might be able to find it, but it could be $150, depending on when it came in from China.
And this is not going to be revoked or rebalanced? Does the new trade deal not go back and say, all right, you paid a lot at the port, we're going to reimburse you?
No, right now this is just a 30%, and the effective tariff rate is a little bit more than that, but a 30% tariff against everything that's coming in from China. And don't forget, the president has said he wants to put tariffs on semiconductors and also on drugs. So in terms of the certainty of trade policy, there's not really a lot of certainty there. And that 30% number, you're so right. I mean, I've been talking to business owners who've been getting emails every few hours from their Chinese suppliers trying to figure out how they're going to price goods, when they can get them out. Can they get them in time for back to school, for the fall, like the winter clothing season, and then for the holidays? And Katie, some companies are just deciding there's some stuff they're not going to buy. I talked to one store owner who's like, he's not doing any more outdoor furniture. Maybe next year he'll get back in, but forget that. He can't even think about what that's going to be at 30% more. So that's after the reduction. There's just still very high tariffs on these goods coming in.
We were talking a moment ago about cancer drugs. What's the deal with cancer drugs? Are they still coming in easily?
Now they're going to be more expensive. And what we saw from China, when the tariffs went up to 145%, Katie, people slammed on the brakes and stopped buying right there, knowing that the whipsaw effect of information coming out of Washington could change the situation in 2 hours, 2 days, or 2 weeks. So folks, again, are hedging. Do I wait? Do I wait? Now I got to pull the lever.
How long does it take, or I guess now that there is a pause, a 90-day pause as they renegotiate again, how confident can importers be that it's not going to change again?
The lack of certainty continues, according to the folks that ship through the Port of Los Angeles. And who are in the crosshairs right now? The small to middle-sized importers. They couldn't bring in...
Who are the small to middle-sized importers?
Your corner hardware store, the flower shop, the pharmacy that runs in Agoura Hills, as an example, back in L.A. They're buying at prices that are elevated, and they can't necessarily pass on those costs because they're competing with the big guys.
And L.A. is in a unique moment, a unique position because of the devastation from the fires in Los Angeles, just insane devastation. You have how many 70,000 structures? Is that what you're saying?
16,000 structures were lost during the fires.
But that's 16,000 structures that have to build from the ground up. That's everything from lumber to appliances. What does this mean for the ability to do that, to do it quickly, but also to do it cost effectively?
Back home, the developers and builders are telling me, along with families that we know, that prices to rebuild in those communities are up 30 to 40%. Altadena, Malibu, Pacific Palisades.
Does insurance pay for that?
Not always.
It's a bad situation for California.
It truly is. 50,000 folks are still without homes and trying to rebuild communities and neighborhoods and small businesses.
Are we still going to see empty shelves? I mean, we were talking about that.
So, look, we saw this huge rush of inventory in the beginning of the year that actually affected that first quarter GDP number. The big, huge retailers had the money, they had the capital, they had the manpower, and they had the places to store all this stuff. So they rushed a lot of goods. It is, just like you said, Gene, it's the small and medium-sized enterprises that didn't have an extra $4 or $5 million to bring in everything they need for the rest of the year. Those are the ones who are going to really be struggling with whether they can stay in business and what they can offer.
Was Donald Trump in the United States, were we actually in a better negotiating position than maybe we initially believed? Because China is an exporter country, it's not a consumer country. They need us in order to make money. Could we have gotten a better deal out of China on exports? Was there a way to do a better job negotiating?
Having worked in China and still keeping my contacts there on a regular basis, there are real opportunities, especially for American exporters. In Los Angeles County alone, there are about 400,000 jobs in the manufacturing community, but only 1% of their products gets exported. There's some real work ahead of us. Trade deals, trying to figure stuff out, and making sure that we have rules-based trade agreements to protect American interests, yes.
Doesn't sound like you're anti-tariff.
It's not. Well, I tell you, I am anti-tariff. It comes to the point where it's hurting the American consumer because we make up 70% of this economy. We've got to find a balance between the two, and there's real upside on exports.
But China's a closed economy. China is a closed economy. To go there, if you're an American business, you have to have a joint venture with another company. You can't be a full...
They're intentionally closed.
Intentionally closed economy. It is not like we are. And for 40 years, American business leaders and politicians of both parties had been saying that if America goes and does business in China and imports all this stuff from China, we will spread freedom, which, of course, has not actually worked out. So, you know, the premise was always that we're going to open up. If we're free and fair, China eventually will be, too. And Donald Trump has rightfully pointed out that that didn't work out and now trying to change the game.
All right, Gene Soroka, I could talk to you for much longer. Christine Romans, you too. Thank you for joining us today. And we like having you in New York, but get back to L.A. They need you.
Will do.